Detective Emily Sinclair stood at the edge of the parking lot, her breath visible in the cold, misty air. The Westridge Sanatorium loomed before her, a monstrous silhouette against the backdrop of a moonless sky. This sprawling structure, once a beacon of hope turned into a chamber of horrors, had stood abandoned for decades, a testament to the darkest corners of human history. She adjusted her collar against the biting wind, glancing at her team assembled beside her. Agent Jacob Bennett, a stoic figure with piercing eyes and a technical prowess unmatched in the field. Dr. Olivia Bishop, a woman of scholarly demeanor and unwavering belief in the paranormal, carried an array of electronic gadgets and spectral analyzers. They were joined by a contingent of Army Rangers led by Colonel Samuel Harker, their presence a reminder of the seriousness of the mission. Detective Sinclair, Colonel Harker's voice cut through the silence, his tone commanding respect. We're here to ensure the security of this operation. We don't know what we're dealing with inside, but we're prepared for anything. Emily nodded curtly, her gaze lingering on the imposing facade of the asylum. Understood, Colonel. Let's proceed with caution. They approached the entrance cautiously, the crunch of gravel beneath their boots echoing ominously in the stillness of the night. The massive oak doors, weathered and worn with age, groaned as they swung open with a haunting finality. The interior was shrouded in darkness, broken only by the feeble beams of their flashlights cutting through the gloom. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of decay and despair. Crumbling walls adorned with peeling paint and broken windows offered glimpses into rooms that seemed frozen in time. Rusty beds, overturned furniture, and remnants of forgotten lives. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant sound of dripping water and the occasional scurrying of unseen creatures. Set up the equipment, Emily instructed, her voice barely above a whisper. We need to establish a perimeter and monitor any unusual activity. Jacob and Olivia went to work swiftly, placing motion detectors, thermal imaging cameras, and EMF meters at strategic points throughout the asylum. Olivia's fingers danced across the touchscreens of her devices, calibrating frequencies and scanning for any anomalies in the electromagnetic field. As they worked, Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, a sensation that crawled up her spine like icy tendrils. She glanced over her shoulder instinctively, half expecting to see shadows darting in the periphery of her vision. But the corridors remained eerily still, holding their secrets close. Detective, Jacob's voice broke the silence, his tone edged with concern. I'm picking up some unusual readings near the east wing. Could be electromagnetic interference, but it's erratic. Emily joined him, peering at the readings on his device. The numbers fluctuated wildly, spiking and dropping with no discernible pattern. Keep monitoring it, she instructed, her voice tight. Let me know if anything changes. As they ventured deeper into the asylum's labyrinthine corridors, their footsteps echoed hollowly against the cracked linoleum floors. The darkness seemed to press in around them, thick and suffocating, as if it had a life of its own. Emily's hand tightened around the grip of her pistol, her senses on high alert. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream shattered the silence, echoing through the asylum like a mournful wail. Emily's heart skipped a beat, adrenaline flooding her veins as she sprinted towards the source. A room at the end of the hallway, bathed in an otherworldly glow. They found him huddled in the corner, his eyes wide with terror and his body trembling uncontrollably. He wore the tattered remains of an asylum patient's gown, stained with dirt and blood. "They're coming for me," he whispered hoarsely, his voice barely audible over the pounding of Emily's heart. Colonel Harker and his rangers rushed forward, securing the area as Emily knelt beside the man, her voice gentle yet urgent. "What happened? Who's coming for you?" "The shadows," he gasped, his gaze darting fearfully around the room. "They move, they crawl on the walls, whispering, they took the others." Emily exchanged a grave look with Olivia, who began scanning the room with her spectral analyzer. The device emitted a faint hum as it swept across the walls, registering fluctuations in temperature and electromagnetic activity. There's definitely something here, Olivia murmured, her brow furrowed in concentration. I'm picking up residual energy patterns, high levels of fear and anguish. Before they could delve deeper into their investigation, a sudden movement caught Emily's attention, a fleeting shadow that darted across the hallway outside the room. She spun around, her flashlight beams slicing through the darkness, but there was nothing there, just the empty expanse of the asylum's decaying infrastructure. We're not alone, Emily said quietly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Keep your eyes open and stay alert. As they regrouped and reviewed their findings, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled upon something far more sinister than they had anticipated. The asylum held secrets that whispered through the corridors and danced in the shadows, waiting to be unearthed. And as the night wore on, the darkness deepened, casting a pall over their mission and setting the stage for horrors yet to come. The team gathered in the makeshift command center they had set up in the asylum's administrative wing. Screens flickered with grainy footage from surveillance cameras positioned throughout the sprawling complex. Emily paced restlessly, her mind racing with questions and uncertainties. Colonel Harker conferred quietly with his rangers, mapping out their next moves with military precision. Olivia busied herself with analyzing the data collected so far, her brow furrowed in concentration as she studied readings from the EMF meters and spectral analyzers. Jacob hovered over her shoulder, his eyes glued to the screens displaying thermal imaging scans and motion detection grids. We need to find out what's causing these fluctuations, Olivia murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. There's a pattern here, a method to the madness. Emily nodded grimly, her gaze fixed on the screen where footage from one of the cameras showed a shadowy figure darting across a corridor. Whatever it is, it's intelligent, she said, her voice tinged with unease. It's not just residual energy, it's something that's aware of us. As they debated their next move, a radio crackled to life with static before a voice cut through. A ranger stationed at the West Wing reporting unusual activity. Emily and Colonel Harker exchanged a glance before nodding in unison, their determination stealing their resolve. We're heading to the West Wing, Emily announced, her voice firm. Let's move out. The corridors seemed to stretch endlessly as they made their way through the asylum, their footsteps echoing hollowly against the walls. The air grew colder, carrying with it a faint scent of mildew and decay that permeated the stagnant atmosphere. Shadows danced at the periphery of their vision, twisting and morphing as if alive. As they approached the West Wing, they encountered more signs of the asylum's tragic past. Rooms lined with rusted bed frames, shattered glass littering the floor, and graffiti etched into walls by vandals and lost souls seeking solace in the darkness. The air grew heavier, laden with an oppressive weight that seemed to press down on their shoulders. Here, the ranger whispered hoarsely, pointing towards an open doorway at the end of the hallway. I saw something move inside. Emily motioned for her team to stay back as she cautiously approached the doorway, her flashlight held steady in her grip. Peering inside, she found a room bathed in an eerie blue glow, a stark contrast to the dilapidated surroundings. The walls were adorned with faded murals depicting scenes of anguish and torment, remnants of a bygone era. A figure stood in the center of the room, its back turned towards Emily. It was tall and slender, its silhouette obscured by the faint light emanating from an unseen source. Emily's pulse quickened as she called out, her voice tinged with apprehension. Hello? Are you all right? The figure turned slowly, revealing a face twisted in pain and anguish, a visage that seemed to defy the laws of existence. Its eyes were hollow voids, devoid of emotion or humanity, yet they bore into Emily with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. Help me, the figure whispered, its voice a haunting echo that reverberated through the room. Before Emily could react, the figure dissipated into thin air, leaving behind only a lingering sense of dread and despair. She stumbled backwards, her heart pounding in her chest as she tried to make sense of what she had just witnessed. We need to get out of here. Jacob's voice broke through the silence, his tone urgent. This place is playing tricks on us. But Emily shook her head, her mind racing with questions and possibilities. No, she said firmly, her voice steadying. We came here for answers, and we're going to find them. With renewed determination, Emily led her team deeper into the West Wing, their footsteps echoing in sync with the beating of her heart. The air grew colder, carrying with it whispers of lost souls and forgotten memories. Shadows danced on the walls, twisting and contorting as if trying to communicate a message, a warning that went unheard. As they pressed on, they encountered more manifestations of the asylum's tortured past, apparitions of patients in tattered gowns, their faces contorted in agony, fleeting glimpses of figures darting in and out of shadowy alcoves, and the distinct sensation of being watched by unseen eyes. We're being surrounded, Olivia whispered, her voice trembling slightly. They're closing in on us. Emily nodded grimly, her grip tightening on her pistol as they continued their relentless pursuit of the truth. The walls seemed to close in around them, suffocating and oppressive, as if the asylum itself was alive and determined to keep its secrets buried deep within its decaying heart. And as they ventured deeper into the darkness, unaware of the horrors that awaited them, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of the malevolent forces at play. The asylum held secrets that whispered through the corridors and danced in the shadows, waiting to be unearthed. But little did they know, the true terror lay ahead, an ancient evil that hungered for their souls and would stop at nothing to ensure its survival in this realm of shadows and nightmares. Emily sat in the dimly lit command center, her gaze fixed on the array of monitors displaying footage from the asylum's surveillance cameras. The encounter with the Shadow Man had left an indelible mark on her psyche, a chilling reminder of the malevolent forces they faced within Westridge Sanatorium. Around her, the team worked in somber silence, each lost in their thoughts and haunted by the events of the previous night. Olivia meticulously analyzed data from their equipment, searching for patterns that could provide insight into the entity's behavior. Jacob monitored the perimeter, his eyes scanning the shadows for any signs of movement. Colonel Harker paced restlessly, his mind grappling with the implications of their encounter. "We need a plan," he stated firmly, his voice cutting through the silence. "Whatever that thing is, it's not going to go away on its own." Emily nodded in agreement, her jaw set in determination. "We need to understand its weaknesses, its vulnerabilities." Olivia looked up from her analysis, her expression grave. Based on the data, the Shadow Man seems to draw strength from fear and negative emotions. It thrives on our uncertainty. "We can't let it divide us," Jacob interjected, his tone resolute. "We need to stay focused and work together." With a plan forming, they gathered their gear and prepared to venture once more into the asylum's depths. The air hung heavy with anticipation and dread, a tangible reminder of the dangers that awaited them in the shadows. As they moved through the corridors, Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, a sensation that intensified with every step. Shadows danced at the edges of her vision, twisting and contorting as if imbued with a life of their own. The asylum seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, as if aware of their presence and eager to ensnare them in its web of despair. Their journey led them to the asylum's lower levels, an area rumored to house the most disturbed patients and darkest secrets. The air grew colder, carrying with it whispers that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. Emily's heart raced with apprehension as they descended deeper into the abyss. In a dimly lit chamber, they discovered remnants of the asylum's grim past. Rusty shackles bolted to the walls, tattered restraints stained with dried blood, and graffiti etched into the stone floor by tormented souls. The stench of decay was overpowering, mingling with the faint scent of sulfur that lingered in the stagnant air. "We're getting closer," Olivia murmured, her voice tinged with both trepidation and curiosity. "I can feel it." Their equipment registered heightened activity. EMF meters spiked erratically, thermal imaging cameras captured fleeting movements in the shadows, and motion detectors beeped ominously in response to unseen stimuli. The asylum seemed to come alive around them, its dark history manifesting in spectral forms and haunting echoes. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the chamber, a sound that reverberated through Emily's bones and sent a chill down her spine. They rushed towards the source, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like beacons of hope in a sea of despair. They found a wounded ranger, his face contorted in agony as he clutched at a deep gash on his arm. "They're here," he gasped, his eyes wide with terror. "The crawlers. They dragged me into the darkness." Emily's blood ran cold as she surveyed the ranger's injuries, her mind racing with the implications of his words. The crawlers, a legend whispered among asylum staff and local folklore, said to be spirits of patients who had perished under mysterious circumstances. They were rumored to crawl through the darkness, dragging unsuspecting victims into their eternal torment. "We need to get him out of here," Colonel Harker stated firmly, his voice betraying none of the fear that gripped them all. Now, they escorted the wounded ranger back to the command center, where Olivia tended to his injuries while Jacob maintained watch over the monitors. Emily conferred quietly with Colonel Harker, their voices low and urgent as they discussed their next course of action. "We can't let fear dictate our decisions," Emily asserted, her voice unwavering despite the unease gnawing at her gut. "We have to confront this entity head-on." Colonel Harker nodded solemnly, his gaze unwavering. "Agreed, but we need a plan, a strategy to weaken it, to force it out into the open." As they deliberated, the asylum seemed to pulse with a renewed malevolence, its walls closing in around them like a vice. Shadows danced mockingly on the walls, whispering secrets and promises of suffering yet to come. The team braced themselves for the inevitable confrontation, knowing that their courage would be tested in the crucible of darkness. And as the night wore on, they steeled themselves for the final battle, a clash of wills between the forces of light and the darkness that threatened to consume them all. The asylum held more than ghosts of the past. It harbored an ancient evil that hungered for their fear and fed on their uncertainty. But Emily refused to back down, her resolve burning brighter than ever in the face of overwhelming odds. They had come to Westridge Sanatorium seeking answers, and now they would face the shadows that lurked within its haunted halls with unwavering determination. Little did they know, the true horrors of the asylum awaited them in the depths of despair, a darkness that had festered for centuries, biding its time for a chance to ensnare their souls in its web of nightmares and eternal torment. Emily stood at the threshold of the asylum's deepest recesses, her heart hammering against her ribs with a mixture of anticipation and dread. The team had fortified themselves with renewed resolve, their eyes fixed on the path ahead as they ventured into the labyrinthine corridors that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Colonel Harker led the way, his rifle held at the ready as they navigated through the darkness. Olivia's spectral analyzers hummed softly, registering fluctuating energy fields that ebbed and flowed like the tides of an unseen ocean. Shadows danced at the edges of their vision, elusive and taunting, as if mocking their determination. "We're nearing the epicenter of the activity," Olivia murmured, her voice a stark contrast to the oppressive silence that surrounded them. "Be prepared for anything." Emily nodded grimly, her grip tightening on her pistol, as they approached a chamber rumored to be the site of ritualistic ceremonies conducted by asylum staff in the facility's darkest days. The air grew colder, carrying with it whispers that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves, a chorus of lost souls crying out for redemption. Suddenly, a sharp cry echoed through the chamber, a voice tinged with pain and desperation. They rushed forward, their flashlights cutting through the gloom to reveal a figure huddled in a corner, its form shrouded in darkness. "Help me," the figure whispered, its voice barely audible over the din of their racing hearts. Emily approached cautiously, her senses on high alert. The figure trembled violently, its features obscured by a tattered gown that hinted at its past existence as an inmate of the asylum. Slowly, it raised its head to reveal hollow eyes that bore into Emily's soul with an intensity that sent a chill down her spine. "What happened to you?" Emily asked softly, her voice a soothing balm amidst the turmoil. The figure's lips parted in a grotesque semblance of a smile, revealing jagged teeth stained with blood. "They took me," it hissed, its voice a haunting echo of torment. "The crawlers, they dragged me into the darkness." Emily exchanged a glance with Olivia, who nodded in silent acknowledgement of the entity's revelation. The crawlers, a malevolent force rumored to roam the asylum's lower levels, feeding on the fear and anguish of their victims. They were said to manifest as shadowy forms that slithered through the darkness, leaving devastation in their wake. "We need to know more," Emily urged, her voice steady despite the unease gnawing at her. "Tell us what you've seen." The figure's laughter echoed through the chamber, a hollow, mocking sound that reverberated off the walls like a curse. "They hunger," it rasped, its gaze fixed on a point beyond Emily's shoulder. "They hunger for souls." Before Emily could respond, the figure dissolved into wisps of smoke, leaving behind only a lingering sense of dread and despair. Olivia scanned the chamber with her spectral analyzers, detecting residual energy patterns that spoke of untold suffering and malevolent intent. "There's a presence here," Olivia murmured, her voice tinged with both fascination and fear. "It's feeding off the asylum's history of pain and anguish." Colonel Harker stepped forward, his expression resolute. "We need to end this," he stated firmly, his eyes narrowing with determination. "We can't allow this entity to continue tormenting the living." With renewed purpose, they pressed deeper into the asylum's labyrinth, their footsteps echoing hollowly against the cracked linoleum floors. Shadows twisted and contorted around them, whispering secrets and promises of suffering yet to come. The air grew colder, carrying with it a sense of foreboding that weighed heavily on their shoulders. In a forgotten wing, they encountered more manifestations of the asylum's dark past. Apparitions of patients lost in the throes of madness, their faces twisted in agony. Phantom footsteps echoing through empty corridors, and the distinct sensation of being watched by unseen eyes. "We're surrounded," Jacob murmured, his voice tinged with unease as he scanned the shadows with his thermal camera. "They're closing in on us." Emily nodded grimly, her mind racing with possibilities. They were outnumbered, outmatched by forces that defied explanation and comprehension. Yet they could not afford to falter, not when the lives of their team and the fate of the asylum hung in the balance. As they regrouped to assess their next move, a low, guttural growl echoed through the darkness, a sound that sent a shiver down Emily's spine. They turned as one, their flashlights sweeping the corridor in search of the source, but found only empty space and the haunting echoes of their own fear. "We need to find the source," Emily stated firmly, her voice cutting through the tension that hung thick in the air. "We need to confront this entity head-on and put an end to its reign of terror." With a nod from Colonel Harker, they forged ahead, their determination serving as a beacon of hope amidst the encroaching darkness. The asylum seemed to pulse with a renewed malevolence, its walls closing in around them like a vice as they ventured deeper into the abyss. And as they prepared for the final confrontation, Emily knew that their journey into the heart of darkness was far from over. The asylum held more than ghosts of the past. It harbored an ancient evil that hungered for their fear and fed on their uncertainty. But Emily refused to back down, her resolve burning brighter than ever in the face of overwhelming odds. They had come to Westridge Sanatorium seeking answers, and now they would confront the shadows that lurked within its haunted halls with unwavering determination. Little did they know, the true horrors of the asylum awaited them in the depths of despair, a darkness that had festered for centuries, biding its time for a chance to ensnare their souls in its web of nightmares and eternal torment. The final chapter of their harrowing journey into the depths of Westridge Sanatorium dawned with an eerie stillness that belied the tension simmering beneath the surface. Emily Sinclair, Colonel Samuel Harker, Agent Jacob Bennett, and Dr. Olivia Bishop stood at the threshold of the asylum's darkest chamber, a place where shadows coalesced into malevolent forms and echoes of suffering reverberated through the corridors. "We need to finish this," Emily stated firmly, her voice carrying a weight of determination forged in the crucible of their encounters with the supernatural. "We can't allow this entity to continue haunting this place." Colonel Harker nodded, his jaw set with unwavering resolve. "Agreed. Let's end this nightmare once and for all." Olivia's spectral analyzers hummed softly, registering heightened energy readings that pulsed like a heartbeat through the stale air. Shadows danced mockingly on the walls, whispering secrets and promises of suffering yet to come, but the team pressed forward undeterred. They entered the chamber cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the gloom to reveal sigils etched into the stone floor, a testament to rituals performed in a bygone era when the asylum's halls echoed with screams of the tormented. The air grew colder, carrying with it a sense of foreboding that hung heavy on their shoulders. "We're in the heart of it now," Olivia murmured, her voice tinged with both apprehension and fascination. "The entity is close." Suddenly, a low, guttural growl reverberated through the chamber, a sound that sent a chill down Emily's spine. Shadows coalesced in the corner of the room, twisting and contorting into a familiar form. The Shadow Man, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly intensity. Emily raised her pistol, her hands steady despite the fear gnawing at her gut. "Show yourself," she commanded, her voice echoing with authority. The Shadow Man's laughter filled the chamber, a haunting cacophony of derision that resonated like a curse. "You dare to challenge me?" it hissed, its voice a chilling whisper that slithered through their minds like a serpent. Colonel Harker stepped forward, his rifle aimed squarely at the entity. "We know what you are," he stated firmly, his voice unwavering. "You feed on fear and despair, but we won't let you consume us." The Shadow Man's form flickered, its features contorting with rage and malice. Shadows twisted around it, reaching out with tendrils that sought to ensnare their souls in an eternal embrace of darkness. "We're not afraid of you," Jacob asserted, his voice cutting through the tension that hung thick in the air. "We've faced worse." With a nod from Emily, they unleashed a barrage of firepower and spiritual energy, a combined assault born of determination and the desperate need to banish the darkness that had plagued the asylum for centuries. Light and shadow clashed in a symphony of chaos, each side vying for dominance in a battle that transcended the physical realm. The chamber erupted with supernatural energy, crackling and swirling like a storm unleashed from the depths of the abyss. The walls trembled with the force of their confrontation, ancient stones groaning under the weight of millennia-old suffering and anguish. Olivia chanted incantations, her voice rising above the tumult as she channeled spiritual energy into the fray. The air shimmered with ethereal light, illuminating the asylum's darkest corners and banishing the shadows that clung to existence with desperate tenacity. "We're weakening it," Olivia shouted above the din, her eyes blazing with determination. "Keep pushing." Emily and Jacob fired relentlessly, their weapons becoming conduits of light and hope in the face of overwhelming darkness. Colonel Harker's resolve never wavered, his leadership guiding them through the maelstrom of supernatural forces that threatened to overwhelm them. And then, with a final surge of energy and a collective cry of defiance, the Shadow Man faltered. Its form wavered, dissipating into tendrils of smoke that dissipated into the ether. The chamber grew still, the oppressive atmosphere lifting like a shroud lifted from their shoulders. "We did it!" Emily breathed, her voice filled with a mixture of relief and disbelief. But their victory came at a cost. The asylum's dark history had left scars that would linger long after they left its haunted halls. They tended to the wounded and accounted for their team members, their hearts heavy with the knowledge of lives lost and sacrifices made in the name of confronting the unknown. As they made their way out of the asylum, Emily cast one final glance over her shoulder. The shadows seemed to retreat, their malevolent presence banished by the light of their courage and determination. The asylum stood silent and still, its secrets buried beneath layers of forgotten history and the weight of countless souls seeking solace in the afterlife. "We've closed this chapter," Colonel Harker stated, his voice carrying a note of finality. "But there are other places like this out there. We must remain vigilant. Emily nodded in silent agreement, her gaze fixed on the horizon, where the first rays of dawn painted the sky with hues of hope and renewal. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but their journey into the world of ghosts and shadows was far from over. And as they left Westridge Sanatorium behind, Emily knew that their experiences would haunt them long after they returned to the light of day. A reminder of the thin veil that separates the living from the realm of the dead, where horrors lurk in the shadows and the echoes of the past linger like whispers on the wind.